Nothing in this recording is intended as investment advice, and the people in this recording may hold positions in the companies they talk about. Do not make any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to Zak's Traders Cafe. Today I'm joined by Tim McCutcheon, who's CEO at Talisman Metals. How are you today, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thanks for calling.
Right, just in case listeners are panicking because they haven't heard of Talisman Metals, there is a story and you're here to tell it.
That's right. Yes. So it is a little bit convoluted. The company it was originally called Ovoca Bio PLC. We trade halted in May of last year, and through a fairly lengthy process to get readmitted to the exchange. We went through all of that and were readmitted last Wednesday. We're right now in an interesting situation because we're still trading under the old ticker OVB as Ovoca Bio. And this week, all the paperwork should be filed and completed to change the name. And then once that happens officially, we'll trade under the new ticker of TLM. But as of today, we're still under OVB on the AIM exchange.
Right, and maybe with that slightly complicated background, you can tell us exactly what the company does, which I suppose is the sizzle in terms of the story.
The sizzle, exactly. So look, so what we've done is we've taken an AIM-listed shell that had some cash in it. We vended into that shell a portfolio of Moroccan copper exploration licenses, and we've cashed up the shell, topped up the treasury, so that we went public, readmitted last Wednesday with about $2.8 million in cash at a $5 million valuation. So pretty much no goodwill baked into the cake. We're basically trying to make sure that investors who get in at this level have plenty of upside going forward because the projects are really exciting and we want, frankly, everyone to do well, make money, and to help be our friends in funding as we advance the projects. The projects are sediment-hosted copper deposit targets, and that is really the name of the game right now in the copper space. And the reason for that is sediment-hosted deposits can be quite large, and yet the upfront capex to actually churn a project into a mine is significantly less than some of the other things that people are probably more familiar with, which are the giant copper deposits in South America that tend to be porphyries. So sediment deposits, what you're doing is you're thinking of like the Grand Canyon, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, where you have layer upon layer upon layer of sediments that used to be at the bottom of an ocean. One of those layers is impregnated with copper, and then over time, that whole sediment basin gets, thrust up above the ocean, and then various erosions events and everything else expose that layer that has copper impregnated throughout it. Our main project is a sediment-hosted copper deposit where it actually outcrops at surface, which means you can drive a car right up to it and look at copper mineralization just hanging out in the middle of the desert. What makes it particularly exciting is because it's in Morocco. Why is that? Morocco had a very antiquated licensing procedure, regulatory system up until 2016. They completely modernized it, and it allowed people like me to work there. So you have a situation where you have a new regulatory framework, a lot of exciting geology, and yet all of this is new. It's not sort of rehashed people's projects from 10, 20, 30 years ago. So there aren't a lot of places in the world when you can get in a car, drive on a paved road, pretty much drive almost all the way up to an asset on a paved road, get out of your car, see copper outcropping at surface, and it's never been drilled. It's almost unheard of. But that's the case where we are right now. So what we have is basically our core project is a 8 kilometer by 4 kilometer wide block that has copper outcropping its surface. And this layer, what we're going to do is hit it very hard with exploration work right away now that we're listed, and come out with exploration results as soon as we can to basically demonstrate that the copper that outcrops the surface extends into the mountainside, that there's sufficient quantities of it, and that we can basically pick away at removing risk at this project to get to the point of having a standalone mine.
So just to there was many points there, but one or two that stick out. You haven't got. I mean, this is not like getting somebody else's regurgitated or like sort of pass the parcel type project. This is a sort of is virgin territory. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is the main point. most this is no one's leftovers, right?
Right.
This is not a lifestyle company. I put this together to make money for all shareholders. I happen to be the largest shareholder in the company right now, and the idea is to really cherry pick the projects that have the most upside potential. So this is not some sort of project where I'm making a bet that I'm smarter than some other guy who had it 10 years ago. Usually those bets don't work out very well. This is a project that is new, and yet it has significantly less risk than other early stage exploration projects because the metal we're looking for outcrops at surface. So we know the metal's there, number one. Number two, it has been sampled extensively, and we know the grade of the metal that is present is commercial and comparable to nearby mines. And three, we know that this type of deposit has a very good chance of being predictable because the thing about sediment-hosted copper deposits is they're just not as old as some of the other things that maybe your listeners are familiar with. A greenstone belt deposit in West Africa, they're about 3 billion years old. This thing, because it's sediment hosted, is only 500 million years old. So Mother Nature has just had less time to scramble it up and make it complicated. So, all of those things, what they lead to at the end of the day is a project that has never been touched. And at the same time, it is there's a lot of the risk factors you would think of in an early stage project are sort of taken care of given the type of deposit that we're targeting and going after.
The other question, which I don't think I've actually asked anyone in the recent past, obviously copper and precious metals, critical metals, all through the roof at the moment. Were you paying top dollar for these projects? So what part of the cycle were they acquired? Where were you in on the game?
Yeah, so we have the people who vended this project into what the people from whom I bought the projects are old time mining hands. A guy named Ian Stalker and Neil Herbert are the two main partners there who have been around mining forever. And they are very much aware of, not sort of chasing dragons, up and down and all over the place. They wanted to get a deal done, and to put it with a management team and with a platform that could fund the development of the projects. That's number one. Number two, I don't think we were so concerned about the dollar amount. We were concerned about basically who brings what to the table. And whenever you're doing an RTO or reverse takeover type transaction, you can sometimes lose the forest for the trees in terms of getting all, into like, well, what dollar amount of this, that, and the other thing. And fortunately, everyone at the table was very commercially minded. And at the end of the day, what we did is the vendors got 40% of the shell, the legacy shareholders had 60% of the shell. And then from that point on, we funded it and then readmitted it to the exchange last Wednesday. So technically we bought it for $1.5 million, but to be frank, that number is not really relevant. What was relevant is they got 40% of the shell refunding.
Right. So just to sum it all up, you are offering people hopefully a ground floor valuation. You're in copper. You've got sort of virgin territory, and you've got n not other people's leftovers in terms of sloppy seconds, maybe as they call them over here. So there's everything to play for in terms of the assets that you're sitting on. And copper hot at the moment. You didn't overpay, and the value there's not a sort of a hot valuation on the company either at the moment.
Correct. All of that is correct. And I think, we've been working very hard at this for a long time. There's a whole series of news flow that's set to come out over the next, 3 to 6 months. So this is going to be, there's going to be plenty to talk about, plenty of buzz around the story as we now readmitted, and all of the things that we've been planning for the past year can now sort of actually play out. So it was designed as a former investment banker myself. I designed this transaction to give a lot of upside because ultimately that's how everyone makes money. It's in the best interest of the company for have a lot of happy shareholders.
Yeah, and just a final question. What tends to happen in these situations, you've got a portfolio, got, a few projects there, and then all of a sudden, like 3 months later, say, oh, we've just found something really good. We're going to, raise money to buy that. Is there would you risk spreading yourself too thin, or are you going to focus on what you've got under the bonnet at the moment?
No, look, we're always when you have an equity platform, which is what this is, you're always on the lookout for things where you can add value. I have no desire in having, an entire gaggle of properties that are just going to burn cash because the expiration game, at the end of the day, money only goes one way out. It doesn't come in, right? We're not selling anything. So you definitely want to make sure that you control costs and cash spend for sure. But the key thing here is to just have awesome projects that add value.
Well, we look forward to see how that goes. Tim McCutcheon, CEO at Talisman. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.